Hey guys, how's it going? This is Dilmer again. So today I want to talk a little bit about goal setting and why I think it's so important to set goals for your startup or your game development journey. And a few years ago, I started working on a game, and I didn't really have a path. And I was like many of you right now that all you want to do is jump into the game engine and start coding and start creating art because I know at the end of the day that's one of the most the fun part. It's the creativity process. So what are some of the things that I recommend you do before you jump into the game engine and start creating code and creating art? And that is to actually set goals for yourself, set goals for your brand. So one thing that I do every day and every morning is I look at all the different goals that I have as far as like long-term goals and then short-term goals. So you might ask me, how do you track that information? Do you write it down in a little notebook, or do you actually track it in a digital tool? And I do both. I mean, it can be there might be a day when I'm working on something and an idea just pops up, and it's an idea that it's realigning my goals. So I might keep few notes about it and also keep it on a digital medium. So what I recommend that you use, and that this is what I do, is I have a Trello board, and in my Trello board I have uh, basically a board just for long-term goals and also a board for short-term goals. So in the long-term goals, of course, I have things like, you know, the agency has to get this big, or I have to have this many employees, or for example, one that I always dream about is I want my game to go viral and be played by millions of people. So that's a goal that I put in there for myself. And then I have other goals that are similar to that. I'm a dreamer, and I know that you're a dreamer. And a lot of times I think we are just a little bit scared, or we don't really believe in ourselves to write something that big in our long-term goals. But I think that is so important because for me, I'm a visual person. So if I go in, and I might not look at the goals every morning, but if I go in and look at my goal and I see that I want to get to this amazing game that I'm going to be creating. But before I get to that point, I can look at my short-term goals, and those short-term goals have to be some kind of aligned with your long-term strategy. And let me explain what that means a little bit. So let's say that we want to create the most amazing puzzle game in the App Store for iOS, and I said that for my long-term goal. But in your short-term goals, you're saying you're creating casual games, you're creating applications, you're doing all these different things that might apply to your long-term goal because you're still learning technology, but you want to make sure that you do more of what your long-term goal is, if that's where you want to get to. So we want to always be creating, adding value, a little bit of value to get to our long-term goals. So just to reiterate, just make sure that you create a Trello board. That Trello board is going to have short-term goals. Short-term goals can be, the projects that you're working on. You can say, okay, I release Superman #2, and that's your game name. And then on another goal, on the short-term goal, you might say, well, I released this puzzle game. And how do you move those? How do you keep track of those tasks? Is in the short-term goal board, I keep three columns. One column is my backlog, everything, all the different short-term goals, and then another column I have in progress. These are the short-term goals that I'm working on. For example, if you're working on a puzzle game right now, and your goal within that project is to release that game, as soon as I start working on that game, I'm gonna move that, release the puzzle game to the in progress column, and then that will stay there until I finish that game. Then a month from now, 2 months from now, when you finish that game, you're gonna move that release puzzle game to the done column. And that is honestly one of the most motivated things that I do, because what happened with that is, you go back, if I go back to my short-term goal board and I look at everything that I finished over the last 4 years, and it's incredible. It's like I have so many different things that I've done, and that's what I want to have for you is, make sure that you have a visibility, some way of visually see what you're completing, so that you can get motivated. I mean, this is a mental game, and I want you to be motivated. I mean, you have that passion. I mean, you love making games, you love making apps. So the key here is to stay consistent and keep looking at your short-term goals, keep looking at your long-term goals, and then keep them up to date. So I hope that was helpful. This is one of the my tricks. This is what I do all the time to keep me motivated. A lot of people ask me, how do you stay motivated? And this is one of the main reasons is I look at my goals all the time. Like, I'm looking at them every day. As soon as I wake up in the morning, I look at my short-term goals, and I also look at my long-term goals. So make sure that you look at those. And I know people that they even have a little sticky note in their car, and then as soon as they wake up and they go and drive, that's the first thing they see. It might sound, it might sound no as something that you might done in the past, and you might feel like, oh, this is just strange, but it is very important. It is what I do. It is what a lot of my friends do that are really successful. Your mind is the only thing that is stopping you from getting to where you want to get. And then, if your mind it's getting better by just looking at sticky notes and looking at your long-term goals, then do it. I mean, don't be afraid of what people might say, or what your dad might say, or it doesn't matter. I think what's important here is what you believe, and you gotta keep on growing with time. So I hope that was helpful. I appreciate it again, and thanks again.